Welcome, Colette.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. Excited to get started today. Colette Bashir with the multi-industry division here at Action. For those of you who are new to our monthly series, a few highlights about Action. We are a 65 million a year annual revenue company, and we are growing. Multiple acquisitions throughout the years, and proud to say that this year, 2023, most importantly, voted one of the top workplaces in the U.S. So very excited to be here as well. As I mentioned, this is the multi-industry Acumatica division. We are construction, distribution, manufacturing, and all of the ISV components that go along with those industries. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump right in, highlighting the new features that are in the construction edition. 2023 R1 is focused on information, presenting information that's available in the construction module, expanding upon the ability to run reports on projects with the most up-to-date information. There's a lot of reporting changes in this edition. This is highlighting here. They've basically gone through each of the various reports and updated them with better selection criteria, various font alignment, making sure there's consistency and the best possible options for running the reports. I'm going to highlight the ones today, most importantly, being the WIP reports have been redone. Okay. There is no longer the 4 reports. So it used to be a project WIP and a WIP summary and then a project WIP detail with date ranges. So there was 4 reports in total. Those 4 reports have been consolidated into 2 reports, one that runs with the date range and one that's in summary. Okay. They are using the existing, 2 of the existing project WIP report screens. So I will highlight those changes here momentarily. The first change here on the WIP report, what you're going to see now is the ability to pull in cost projection information. So for those of you using cost projections, you have the ability now to run the report either compared to your cost budget or to cost projections, which are updates to your budget. So that's going to be on the project WIP report. The project WIP with detail report is now going to have an additional parameter on it that's going to ask you the level of detail that you want to display in the WIP report. So now you can run it with cost code or by account group or with both account group and cost code. So several companies have customized these reports with the ability of changing that level of detail. Now the out-of-the-box report is going to allow for that level of detail change. Another change to the WIP report is that now AR invoices, period billings, are going to be considered as well right within the WIP report. So you're going to have this period billing based upon the selection criteria versus all billings to the period. Another change on the WIP report is going to be the ability to include potential change order amounts that will be updated to revised amounts. Several customers have made that modification on their own in the past. So what you're going to see here is all of the different changes that you may have requested are now going to be available out of the box. Another important change is the ability to have AR aging and AP agings by project. Again, these were most common requests for customization, was to have the ability to have your agings run by project. Now those reports will be available. And this is just a sample. There's going to be an AR aging by project detail and an AR aging project by summary report. So those will be new reports that are added to the menu. Now, because the reports, for example, for the WIP reports are utilizing the same screen number to be able to run the new out-of-the-box report, you're going to come to your project WIP detail report, and you're going to want to make sure here on the report versions screen, you will need to uncheck any custom report that you have to be able to run the new out-of-the-box report. So in the event that you have a report, you want to be able to run the new report versus any custom report. In the event that you use the same report ID, you will need to open the report in Report Designer and save it as a new report screen ID. Okay, so that's a little bit of an advanced trick that you may or may not have gotten during report design training, but most importantly, I want to let you know to stay tuned. One of our very next sessions is going to be on how to help you modify these reports should you have a custom report, plus you want to still run the default Acumatica out-of-the-box report. So be on the lookout for one of our very next sessions. Previously, for those of you who had joined our toolbox talks, they're now going to be Acumatica tips and tricks. So we will help make sure everyone knows how to rename reports so you can run the out-of-the-box report. Also in the construction edition, in 2022 R2, it was introduced production unit tracking. Okay, the ability to be able to track production units. So for example, if you are installing rebar, for example, you have so many units that you need to install. The progress units allow you to track on a daily basis those entries. It can be tracked either through the worksheet, the progress unit worksheet, or in the daily field reports. So now in 2023 R1 is the incorporation of that information into reporting. So now on the daily field reports, if you're adding in those production units, what you will see now on that field report is a progress worksheet section that will display. Obviously, if you have not entered any units, it will be suppressed. So you'll see that if you're adding in those units. And then now also there's a project progress report. So this is going to display for you the entries. It's going to show your current period completed quantity versus your budgeted quantity, and then your current period percent complete against the overall percent complete. So if you are using progress units, these are some fantastic new additions to the reporting. So again, here's a deeper dive into what that looks like on the daily field report and your progress report. All right, so in 2022 R2 also, Acumatica is continuing to build out the approval map and the rejection capability. So although there's been approval ability throughout the system in various circumstances, the ability to reject a change order, and then now also in 2023 R1, the ability to have rejection options for change requests and for daily field reports. So if you already have approval maps set up for either daily field reports or change requests, you can now go into the approval map, and you will see now on the rules section at the bottom a reason for rejection. So by default, it'll be as not prompted, but you can turn that on. So if you want end users to have an ability to reject those items, you can do that. All right, additional functionality improvements for joint payees. So in the past, it was a little bit complicated to get the joint payee information entered, and then also in the printing process for the joint payees. So what Acumatica has now done in 23R1 is that there is no longer a separate pop-out screen that has to be entered for the joint payee information. It's going to be available to you right in line in the screen. Let's take a look. So now in the bills and adjustments entry, you're going to be able to enter right in the detail section joint payee information instead of having it as a pop-out item. What this is going to allow for is the ability to actually print a joint payee check in one of three ways. The first one is you're able to print the joint payee right from the bills and adjustments screen. So what you see here in line in the screen is on the joint payees tab here within the bill. It will pull the information directly into the check screen if you choose to run it from bills and adjustments. Now, several of you run them by going through the normal process of the prepare payment screen. What has been enhanced here is that now if that same joint payee exists perhaps on two different bills, it's going to combine them for you onto a single check. So if you see here, bills with the same vendor will be grouped into one check. If pay separately, you can turn off the ability to pay separately. Right here, you'll see the checkbox for the joint payee. So that's a very nice feature, allowing you not to have multiple checks for the same vendor. So that's the ability to process it through the payment screen. And then now also from the check payment screen itself, you also will see that the joint payee name is now filled out on that screen as well. And if you need to add it after you have already processed them, you have the flexibility now to add it in. So Acumatica is trying to give you flexibility no matter which stage of the process you're in. Oftentimes you may not know when you've entered the AP bill that you need to have a joint payee. So now they're giving you flexibility to go back and to add in that information no matter where you are in the process. There's also an update to the lien waiver workflow process. Now you have the ability to create a lien waiver even if you have not entered a subcontract document. Prior to 2023 R1, you must have set up a subcontract commitment to be able to have the automated lien waiver process kick off. So let's talk about the lien waiver process in general. Oftentimes, you want to be able to generate a lien waiver prior to running through the entire check process, right? Oftentimes, you want to collect that document in advance of running your check printing. So now this flexibility has been built into the system, and it also provides flexibility around purchase orders as well. So you'll see right here in the compliance preferences, now there's two checkbox here, both for conditional and unconditional waivers, whether or not you want to generate for AP documents not linked to commitments. Okay, so in the process now, the automation, they're also giving you flexibility to print at the time of AP entry. We'll walk through and look at those screens now. There's also a new parameter to calculate the amount by project. So the ability to combine when you have the same subcontractor perhaps, or the same documents, you can combine them for 3 separate payment applications at the time of printing. Let's take a look here. All right, so now what you're going to see here is you have the ability to pay a bill that's not linked, sorry, not pay a bill. You have the ability to generate a lien waiver that's not linked to the commitment. So in the past, this had to be populated for the system to generate the lien waiver, okay? So now the lien waiver will be auto-generated when you clear the hold. Okay. This also now on the compliance preferences screen gives you the ability to tell the system how you want the lien waivers to be grouped. So you'll see here if you want a separate lien waiver per commitment, per task and per project even, that's the first option. You could have it just for commitment and project. Project and project task. So maybe you have a subcontractor, the same subcontractor performing different tasks on your project and you want it to be signed separately per task, you can do that. Or the highest level is just project. So no matter how many subcontracts you have across the project, that would be the highest level. So again, right here, that is a new setting that's available on the compliance preferences screen. Okay, so now on the bills and adjustments screen, as we mentioned, that compliance record is created even though there's not a payment linked to it yet. Okay, so this is what is giving you the ability to print those documents even though they have not been paid. So this is something that we've been waiting for quite some time. The normal workflow is that you do not even issue the check until a subcontractor has submitted the signed lien waiver back to you. So this will help tremendously for those companies that have a workflow where it's required prior to printing. Okay. Enhancements to the cost projection. Now inside of the cost projection screen, they have added 2 new columns for projected quantity, so for variances for projected quantity and projected cost variance. So now if there, it'll automatically populate that information for you, and you can also now run your WIP report directly from the cost projection screen. So as you're making those entries and you want to check to see what the impact is on the project, you can do so now right from the screen. In addition, the progress worksheets are now going to be available as well from the mobile application. So if you're requesting the field to help you update information related to progress and quantities, that can be done now directly from the mobile application. The last enhancement here to the construction portion of Acumatica is related to the tax category. It has now been added on the commitments tab of the change orders form. So for those of you that needed the ability to show tax on items that were related to a committed cost, that has now been added into the product. Let's take a look now at finance enhancements. Okay, in the past, if you had set up a new account in the chart of accounts and you had accidentally flagged it as an asset account and it should have been a liability account, you had no way to flip the type on that account. So what ended up happening, as soon as an entry was made against an account, it could not be changed. Your only option was to deactivate the account and to set up a new one. So now you do have the ability to flip that account type in the event that you needed to change its setting. Now, we also have the ability to streamline our processes for printing checks. There's now a new feature that's on the payment method. In the current system, from the AP bills, you go through the prepare payments process, then the process checks screen opens, and then finally you print the check. What they've done to streamline this, if you see here, if you enable quick batch generation, you can go directly from prepare payments screen to the checks printing. Let's take a look at that setup. So now in your cash management section of your cash account, right here on the payment method screen is where you can enable that quick batch generation. So if you turn that on, that will streamline the process without having to go through the additional screens to print the checks. There's also been changes around the ACH capability in Acumatica. So for those of you that may initiate wires or have more complex banking requirements, the ACH process was limited in what we could set up to automate creating that file that needed to go to the bank. So in the past, we had created business events that would link to an export scenario that would generate the file, and then you exported that file out to your bank. Now they've added in the additional capabilities to modify that ACH file and include wires. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So on this screen here, there's a new setting on the payment method for your ACH to either use the existing format, which was just an export scenario. Now they have an ACH plugin option. When you turn on that ACH plugin option, what you're going to see now is we have all of the additional fields that were needed to be set up to be able to transmit that additional information that a bank needed. So you'll see here you've got the ability to set those additional banking requirements to set up the ACH. So a very nice feature. I know many companies are moving to electronic payment of their bills. This gives you that flexibility. An enhancement to the approval process, they have now added in the ability for you to assign a delegate to your approvals. So now when your project manager or somebody goes on vacation, you can delegate somebody to receive your approvals. So let's take a look at how that is set up. Each individual from the top of the screen, if you go into My Profile, what you're going to now see on the user profile is a Delegates tab. On that Delegates tab, you can see here, you can set up a delegate for all of your approvals, or you can set up just a delegate for expense receipts and expense claims. So those are the two options today that are available. And then what you will see now from the approvals screen, you also now have an option to reassign. Okay, so if you look here on the reassign, you can actually just reassign your delegate. It will automatically include your delegate on those items, but then here you have the ability to ignore the approver's delegations if you want to assign somebody else to the approval. And you can see here it can be on a case-by-case basis. All right, enhancements to payroll. Currently, there's just a couple of enhancements. The first one is the workers' compensation by code report. They have now included a total subtotals on the report. So oftentimes we had been asked to customize this report. So hopefully now this will give the breakout and totals that are needed out of the box. And they have also updated the payroll batches inquiry. So they've added in some default filters for pay group and pay period. So if you currently have a customized, or if you've customized your payroll batch screen, you'll want to make sure to export out that inquiry prior to upgrade. Otherwise, that inquiry will include the new out-of-the-box inquiry for payroll batches. Field service, there was just one enhancement. Whoops, sorry, I skipped it. One enhancement to the product at this time. It was a pretty significant one from a back-end perspective. What Acumatica has done has cleaned up the code that was related to some of the performance issues that happened in field service. So a little bit technical here, but what they have done is they've gone through and solved a lot of the back-end coding that was creating when you had a ton of different work orders on the screen. Hopefully you'll see improved performance on reporting as well once you upgrade to 2023 R1. Let's take a look at distribution. So these high level of the distribution improvements, I'm going to highlight a few of the ones that I thought would be important for our customer base. The first one is improvements to the blanket purchase orders. So currently there is a need to track the actual quantity of received items, accounting for partial receipts on the blanket PO. So now what they have done for a blanket type PO, you're going to see now in the blanket order and the purchase order, the addition of the quantity and the blanket open quantity. All right, something else that Acumatica has done is they have made changes to the sales order type, the RM order type that had both issue. The problem was you wanted to have both issues and receipts on a sales order. So what they've done now is they've added in the ability to put a negative on a line in the sales order detail. This will then negative line quantities, okay, will make all the other values in the line negative as well. Okay, so just by changing the sign of the line quantity, it'll automatically change the operation type. Okay, the forms will also now include those negative quantities. So the idea here is that instead of having to go out and do a separate order type for a return, you're able to include both of those on the same order. All right. The other business need is for counter sales, right? So for anybody that has cash sales, this is another important feature you wanted to be able to do a return and an issue all at the same time, and oftentimes maybe you're selling something and they're also bringing something back to you. The net result of that order may be a credit memo. So now they've simplified a new order type so that you don't have to go through the whole process of shipping an item where you're doing counter sales. So that new order type that they've created is called MO. So the mixed order type now will have the ability for you to add in the behavior, right? So now you do not have to go through the process to ship. And then the net effect of the document will either create an invoice or a credit memo. Okay, so no more shipment. Shipment will be inactive, and you can also quick process that order type. So very nice for a cash counter or just a quick way to get a sales order out for adjustments, right? Okay. So you'll see here again, this is perhaps what the detail would look like on a mixed order. Okay, so we're selling 5 items and we received back in 10 items, and the result of this document would be, in this case, it's still a sales order, but if it had been a negative item, it would have created a credit memo. All right, another big change in 2023 R1 is predefined roles have now been created for the distribution module. So many years in the making here, but now we're going to see predefined user roles have been created and will be available when you set up new users. So they've kind of broken down them into functional areas. So you have 4 different types for sales orders, purchase orders, inventory, and then for data entry staff. So as you onboard new team members, maybe you haven't taken the time to create granular user roles. This will be very, very helpful. Acumatica also has added in the ability to disable automatic tax calculation for those of you who are using e-commerce sites. So oftentimes that tax was being calculated at the time of order entry from your e-commerce site, and there was complexities around the order coming back in and possibly having duplication of tax. So now they're allowing for the ability to turn that tax calculation off. So a very good enhancement for those of you using e-commerce. All right, a couple more items here, enhancements. They have now added in a pick review on the mobile application for those of you using pick, pack, and ship functionality. So what was happening, the business need was driven by the fact that people who were doing the packing were not able to see, to view the picked items, right? So now while they're doing the pack process, they will be able to have a look up here. You'll see on the mobile application, the new pick review. All right, and then lastly here, a change to one of the dead stock inquiry. They've added in the column now for the last purchase date. Okay, so before you decide that you may want to retire certain items in your inventory, you'll be able to see that last purchase column here. All right, just as a mention here, Acumatica is in the process of reviewing special orders for distribution. Some of you may have been contacted already by your primary consultant. If special orders are something that you're very interested in and you haven't heard about this program, Acumatica is in the process of asking people to participate in a beta program. So please reach out to your representative here at Action if you are interested in getting involved in that program. CRM, let's talk about some enhancements here. Reporting, first and foremost. Now the opportunity summary report will now be able to show you impact on current sales, and there's a new side panel that has also been added. So the report or the inquiry will now run by opportunity stage, and on the right-hand side you'll be able to see by month, by salesperson, what those volumes are. So a new addition there for the opportunity summary. Also, there's been an enhancement to the tasks screen. So now as you're entering tasks, you're able to flag a category for that task, and it will be displayed on your task inquiry screen. So this is just a quick example. There's a few categories, red, yellow, green, that you can then help prioritize your task list items. There's also been an improvement to the quote to order process. Before, if the customer or if the client was not yet a customer, you had to go through a few steps. You'd try to convert the quote. It would tell you that you needed to add in the customer information. So now they've tried to combine that into a single screen to make that much quicker. So now when you go to convert a quote to order, you'll be able to do that right from the Create Sales Order screen. Reminder templates and notifications for business events. So now for new tasks, when new tasks or activities have been created, you can set up automated notifications that will go out to those people who have been assigned to your various tasks. So again, keeping everyone up to date as new items are entered into the system. All right, let's look at some other enhancements that are not necessarily module specific. There is new functionality around customizations, having the ability to contain access rights. In the past, during upgrade, oftentimes if you had reports that were locked down perhaps only for administrator view, the process of republishing those oftentimes granted access to those reports or items that you did not want end users to have access to. So now they have added the ability to ensure that permissions are not reset when those reports are republished. So you'll see here it is a checkbox that exists to ensure that when you publish that the permissions, either you can reset them or not. And what it looks like in the customization screen, here you will see the checkbox and the access rights that are now added in to customization projects. So for those of you that do have reports that are published into your instances, this is a way to ensure that those permissions are not getting changed after upgrade.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. I just noticed a question did come in, and before you get too far ahead, it came in a few minutes ago.
Sure.
Someone's asking, can a MO order be used when adding a BL order line?
So the MO is an order type, and they're talking about a BL line. So you should be able to add in the lines into the order type, yes. You might have to take that offline to test it, but I would say that yes, you should be able to enter enter the line type to the order.
Okay. They said thank you.
All right, some user interface enhancements. So Acumatica has been improving the messages that are available as you mouse over certain areas of the product. So this is meant to have help right within the screens that you were in without having to make extra clicks or go out to a help file. One of the new enhancements I'm very excited about is the Teams, Microsoft Teams integration. This integration primarily is available within the CRM module, so within opportunities and tasks. It is a feature that needs to be enabled. It's on the enable disable screen, but once you enable Teams integration, what you're going to be able to see now is when you mouse over an owner of a record, you have the ability to see that person's Teams, or to be able to Teams them directly from Acumatica. Okay, so let's take a look here. Where that Teams integration is going to be available is from cases, leads, opportunities, business accounts, contacts, customers, and vendors. So you'll see here, this is a sample of a case. So for those of you using cases, either for perhaps field service or for cases you take from your customers, now you'll be able to see that little Teams button will be highlighted. And then now you can also create an activity and actually send it out to Teams as well. In addition, Acumatica now will integrate with Gmail. So in the past, only Outlook, those using Office 365 and Outlook, had the ability to integrate their email through a plugin. So this is a customization package. It's available out on community for the customers, or again, reach out to Action. We can publish that customization so you can now then integrate your email directly with Acumatica. So you'll see here in your Gmail screen, over here on the right, you now have the Acumatica plugin. You can also now configure user activity timeout directly from within Acumatica. So there is a screen called Security Preferences. In the past, for the SaaS clients that are hosted, we had to put in a support case to Acumatica to ask them to increase the end user's timeout on your system. So now directly from the Security Preferences screen, you're going to see there is a checkbox right here under Timeout Settings. The default for everybody is to use the web config value, which meant that could only be updated on the server. That's why we had to put in a support case. So now you have access to that. Your available values you see are listed here, and very nice feature for when you want to increase those timeouts or decrease them as well. A little bit more sophisticated items here, not for people that haven't managed their snapshots and their tenants, but this is a great new feature in that you can delete tenants and snapshots now in batches. So what does that mean? That means for many of you who might have several training environments, maybe you have multiple companies and then you have multiple training environments per company, they have now added the ability to do them in batches. It used to be one by one, very time consuming. You'll see here on this next screenshot, basically here is the breakdown of what each one of those screens pertain to. So This also helps with cleaning up the amount of storage that's being utilized by these snapshots. So this is something to take a look at as part of our upgrade. If you engage action to assist with the upgrade process, one of the things we ask is if you want to clean up the tenant and perhaps old snapshots that are no longer needed. And then lastly, you can also schedule. You could schedule the deletion of the snapshot. So again, sometimes it can take, up to 30 minutes, an hour. It all depends on the size of those snapshots. So imagine now you can schedule it to run over the weekend. You come in Monday morning and that work is completed on your site. So some nice management features there. In addition, Acumatica has a cloud service diagnostic screen. For those of you who may not have known, it was added there in 2022 R2. What this does is it lets you run a health check on integrated items that you may have in your site. So you can run diagnostics. This is also what Acumatica support would use. If we have to submit a case that you're having some performance issues, you can see here some of the items here: image, receipt recognition, bank feeds, all the things that are running externally that we can run checks on to see system performance. All right, another feature, oftentimes we've had to customize this in the past, was hiding tabs or items. So even though you excluded access rights, perhaps via a user, they didn't always extend to the mobile application. Okay, so now you can ensure if you have restricted items on the application, they will also be restricted on the mobile application. So it will not show unlicensed features. That was another item. So maybe you didn't even have a certain module. By default, it would show those modules on the mobile application. So now they've cleaned that up. You'll only see items that are licensed and that the user has access to. All right, just a few platform items to highlight here. Improvements to business events. So for those of you who are using automation, when an action occurs, you want something else to happen. There's been improvements. Oftentimes, these have been complex to create, so they're constantly improving those automations for the end user. As I touched on there, there's some OpenID Connect from Microsoft and Google SSO. Again, all of these additional platform tools here are outlined in the release notes. Let me highlight a couple of these features here. So another big one is the ability to create a memory dump from the system monitor. So again, about performance and things that not only Action but Acumatica support, we can now create a memory dump to take a look at what's going on in the system, okay? This is a big new feature here, archiving of documents. Currently, this is just for sales orders and shipments. I'm going to assume in the future more modules will be included, but for those clients that have very large volumes of sales orders, Acumatica has included the ability to archive records. So note, it does not reduce the storage of space, right? Because it's still being stored in your database. It's just going to help performance of current records. And what is Acumatica doing, again, directly from the release notes here? Basically, during the upgrade, it's going to create a partition for sales orders, so you're going to have the ability to have historical records as well. And Now, when you're running reports, part of this process is to include if you want to see items that are either current or archived, right? So just a consideration there in that process. So I would encourage you to read through the notes or to engage an action consultant to help you in the archive process. And you're going to see here, it basically will show you how long it estimates that archive will take. Couple enhancements here for third-party products. This one is related to Avalara. Several of our customers have been trying to find ways to streamline the use tax process. There is now a new feature to assist in calculating use taxes on AP bills. So essentially what's going to happen if you set up this new feature, you're going to see here on the Taxes tab, it will display the portion that is being considered for use tax, but that amount is not going to be included in the displayed tax total, right? Because that's completely separate. The sales tax is separate from the use tax. So you'll see here, in this case, if I go to the next screen, basically that little button is telling you use tax is excluded from this tax total. So it's just a way to be able to calculate the use tax, and if you do have Avalara, then it would transmit that information for Avalara to be able to calculate use tax independence from sales tax. So that would be something, if you enable that, if you currently have Avalara, you would want to reach out to our action representative to help you ensure that your licensing would include the new use tax subscription portion. All right, just a couple upgrade notes here to be aware of prior to upgrade. There has been a new line inserted into the database table for joint payee. If you had any customizations related to joint payee, that is going to be something you're going to want to take a look at. Make sure you request your sandbox and test any processes you may have customized related to joint payee to ensure the new workflow doesn't conflict with your current processes. Also, for those of you using the manufacturing module, there has been modifications done to the following screens: production order maintenance and production order details. So should you have any customizations related to those screens, definitely again get your sandbox environment created and walk through your processes to see if there is any impact. Upgrade paths for the latest version here. You will see as long as you are on a version 2021 R2 or later, you have a direct upgrade path to 2023 R1. That's great news. Should you be on a version older than 2021 R2, it will be a two-step process to get you upgraded to 23 R1. So if you are on a version older than 2021 R2, you are currently on an unsupported version and you want to make sure you start your sandbox process and get upgraded as soon as possible. All right, and then related to the inventory and order management modules, on the template tab of the order types form, there was changes made to the orders whose type has active receipt and issue operations for the RMA order. So I showed you now that they've added in that functionality for the negative, the ability to have the negative line item. you're going to want to make sure that if you have any customizations in the screen, that you do some full testing of that. And then they're also advising that if you have a process where you import sales orders for any reason, high volume imports, they're just recommending that you have processed any imports. Do not leave anything in the import screen prior to upgrade. So that's what that portion is there. So again, testing, very important. Get your sandboxes spun up. Remember, you get two sandboxes per year, one for each version. So once you're ready, put in your request to get your 2023 R1 sandbox. A quick sneak peek on what's coming in 2023 R2. These are some of the features here that are highlighted for the construction edition. Side panels in the construction GIs, negative expense receipts, product usage analysis, so that's related to inventory, better restriction on project data, that's been a long requested item, support for partial and full returns of project drop ships, and then also project buyout. So the ability to have project capabilities with requisitions and enhancements to the buyout process. They're also currently testing the pay when paid analysis process. I have a quick screenshot here of that. And then also the ability to mark cost codes as active and inactive. So today there's no way to do that. That'll be a very nice enhancement. You'll see here some of the concepts that are going to be around the pay when paid. This is an example of the pro forma screen where you'll actually be able to see when you drill down into a project transaction, that pro forma will be now linked to those transactions, so you'll be able to quickly tell to run a report to see which items are linked to which invoice. Okay, so here's an example. Again, when you're going to prepare payments, you'll be able to see that pro forma invoice that's linked to them. So again, they're still working on this, but the idea is that if you have received payments from a customer, you want to generate only those prepare payments for your vendors for those items that have been paid by your customer. All right, just a reminder here, always know that go out to community is the best way to get your ideas heard. When you find that there's gaps, feature gaps in the product, all of these enhancements that we're looking at today in 2023 R1 come directly from the community. It comes from your input back to Acumatica. So please make sure you guys are actively noting and updating requests and enhancements out on the Acumatica portal. Okay, so for those of you ready to get started on your upgrades, you can contact us, support@action.com. We are more than happy to help you get started with your sandbox and on your upgrade journey. So that concludes the presentation for today. I want to thank everybody for joining us and looking forward to get everybody on 2023 R1.
Great, thank you, Colette. You fit a lot of information in exactly an hour. I'm very impressed. It's 3:01, so.
I was 1 minute over.
And we started probably 2 minutes late, so I think you're good. Thank you everyone for attending today. I know that was a lot of information to consume. Like I said at the beginning of the session, today's session was recorded and I will be sending a link out following today's session, most likely first thing tomorrow morning. And if you have any questions, please reach out to the consulting team and they will be more than happy to work with you and get you migrated over to the new version of Acumatica. So again, thank you for your time today. Thanks, Colette, for a great presentation, and have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day.